conversation by ourselves, but I did not hit the go live button the second time. So uh, let's see if we can recapture some of that energy. There was a couple of points I wanted to hit. You talked about that the size didn't determine the eligibility because sometimes I've talked to some leaders, their organization may not be as large as a 500 member, 1,000 member organization, church, be it a church or what have you. Why is it that you say that doesn't matter? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Certainly. These grants are startup grants. So your church has the opportunity to apply for these startup grants, even if the nonprofit is a novice nonprofit. If this is its first year of operation, this is the first year you received your tax determination letter from the Internal Revenue Service, or if your ministry has been in existence for over 20 years, you are still eligible to apply for these dollars. And so if you're not comfortable applying for these dollars, then you're also able to partner with another church. If we can come together and have a discussion around creating an interagency collaborative where you have a collective group of churches coming together around a shared vision to create change within their respective county. So that's a conversation we can have as well. But I do not want the size of the church or the ministry to prohibit individuals from applying for these dollars or the years that you've been in existence, because these are startup grants, and any ministry, any size, any year in existence can apply for these dollars.
Wow, that's important. And I wanted you to rehash that because most churches are not mega churches. And sometimes people feel as if that their quantity can determine their level of efficacy, but that's not the truth. You're saying either by way of partnership or by way of connecting with other collaborative partners, that there still is an opportunity for any size organization to participate.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah, that's good. One thing, and we won't be on here long because we want to make sure that people sign up, and we'll talk about that as well. But I was listening. One of my members, one of our brothers at the church, he sent me a clip that I thought was so interesting. I didn't finish it all, but a secular rapper, I'm not going to call the name, had an interview with a Christian rap artist. And one of the things the secular rapper mentioned, that one of the reasons why he did not too much care for organized church is that all he was presented is that we grew in building size, but not in our level of effectiveness or impact in the community. And so the reason why I bring that up is that the community is really looking for the church to really reach beyond the walls. And I think that what you have presented, especially to us, we've been able to tap into education, which is our biggest focus within our circle, the life circle of churches. We've really tapped into that level of resources, and many of the dollars that we've received is by way of the grants that you've identified, as well as helping us, organize ourselves through that process. But we're not a large ministry, but what we have learned to do is use what we have to be able to reach out to the community. But going back to my point, a lot of times the people who are not necessarily in organized Christianity, they have a little sour taste, if you will, because we really are not making that impact that we should. And what I'm hearing is you have a solution that can help give us a plan of action, be it through a collaborative effort or either through the organization setting up its resources to be able to make an impact in the church. So can you kind of hit on that? I know I kind of went around the world and back, but talk about how the information that you have for us that we'll hear on October the 24th can help ministries be relevant in their community and make the impact that the world is looking for.
Most definitely. And one of the things that I found, Pastor Bailey, and I shared with you that I travel across the country meeting with faith-based communities. And one of the things that I've found, especially within the African American church, it's not that the pastors and the members are not interested in providing these services. A lot of these pastors and their members don't know they exist.
Mm.
So when I travel the country and I talk about, Title 4B funding, I'll talk about juvenile justice funding, educational funding, etc. Pastors don't know anything about the funding landscape within the state that their church exists within. So I'll share with them, that you have the opportunity when you think about the after school hours, those hours that parents are not working, those hours that children are not in school, there are dollars for you to go after to provide a safe, supervised, and structured environment. And that's between the hours of 3 to 6. I'm going to focus on those hours on the 24th because they're very important. But during those hours, there are at least 4 to 5 pots of funding that the church can go after. These dollars can fund jobs again for their members, and those members can provide the services that create change within the community. Now the community is looking to the church because the church has launched an urban garden initiative. They're looking to the church because the church is creating a 700 credit score community. They're looking to the church because the church is partnering with the banks to come in and take them through the underwriting process so they can pursue home ownership. All of these things, we're going to have a comprehensive conversation around the strategies that the church can employ. And when the church becomes that community learning center, people then look to the church for all of their needs to be met. Now you're dealing with people as a trichotomous being, body, soul, and spirit. So you're dealing with their spiritual through the church. You're dealing with their soul because you're partnering with mental health, dealing with the psyche, and you're able to bring those services in, and I'll talk about that as well. But then you're also dealing with the physical needs because you're providing the food, you're helping with the shelter, the clothing, etc. So now the church is providing holistic intervention. So now when people look at the church, they see the church as being that institution or that entity that's going to lead me and my family to become self-sufficient. So now you create a real partnership and respect for the church. And I think that's what Jesus would have us to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you've hit on quite a few because I've heard financial literacy. I've heard you talk about health education through all of the things that you've mentioned. I've heard about education through after school, perhaps.
Yes.
You mentioned that. You've mentioned quite a few things, mental health. All of these things, I think the church is responsible for. One of the scriptures that talks about how we should not neglect the widows, we should not neglect those who are in need. And so need is not just financial. Need is, as you mentioned, we're tripartite beings, all the total person. And so one of the things that I'm hoping that we get individuals there on October the 24th. I'm also going to allow streaming. So those who can't physically be there, be it that it's their choice because of concerns with COVID-19, we will be observing social distancing. We have a lot of space that we can do that. We'll have the technology there. We'll do some troubleshooting, and I have all of my equipment there during that day. We'll also record it as well. But you mentioned that churches need to really position themselves to be able to have this kind of an impact in the community. But also, before we get into the outline of Saturday, also talk about those entities that are not churches. So are they able to come as well? If so, how do they connect with this whole community strategy that you're talking about?
So these dollars are for any nonprofit, any 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit is eligible to apply for these dollars. The reason why I focus on the faith-based community again is because I'm a faith-based practitioner. And so having read the scriptures and interpreted the scriptures, I understand that if the earth is to be preserved, it's because the church has to operate as the salt and the light of the world. So I'm challenging churches to come to the table so they can acclimate themselves to the funding landscape of their city, their county, and their state to access these dollars and these resources to create change for those within their membership and those on the outside of their doors. So that's why I focus specifically on churches, but any nonprofit is eligible to apply for these dollars. So if you have a nonprofit, a startup nonprofit, if your nonprofit has been in existence for years and they've never accessed grant funding, which are charitable dollars, then you certainly want to be in attendance because you also want to understand the dollars that you're eligible to apply for. And the great thing about this, we're talking about creating comprehensive, holistic change, serving those in the least restrictive to most restrictive environments. So the goal, of course, is to understand, number one, what dollars am I eligible for, how to apply for those dollars, how to implement those dollars, how to measure the outcome of those dollars so I can create positive measurable outcomes and then launch subordinate chapters in surrounding counties and grow the nonprofit or to grow this initiative. And that's one of the things that I'm excited about. We're able to come together and start this at the micro level, but have a macro vision. And then looking at 10 years from now, hopefully we will have this launched in numerous counties and creating change, especially for those corridors that not, and I'm very interested in that 95 corridor, the corridor of shame. So I'm very interested in that. But any nonprofit can come to the meeting because they're eligible to apply for these dollars. And I think once you understand the funding landscape, you will see the opportunity that exists. And currently right now, I spoke to your state administrator. So I spoke to your state board of education. I spoke to your juvenile justice committee. I also spoke with your Department of Human Resources. And in speaking with them, we're looking at over $30-some million that's being allocated next year. And it's probably going to be more than that with the new fiscal year. But right now, 2020, they've allocated across the board for juvenile justice, education, human resources, for nonprofits, close to $34 million in funding that the churches don't know about and they're eligible to apply for.
Wow. Wow. Well, we definitely need it because that money is there. It's been sitting on the table. As you said, we're going into a new fiscal year. There's opportunities. And I think that anybody in our in South Carolina that can get to this meeting to get this information definitely needs to be there. One of the things that you mentioned quite often is faith-based initiatives, and you may be able to. You're more well versed in those laws and when these things were implemented. But I do understand the fundamental concept is that the government understands that there are social pathologies out there that the government cannot meet the needs, of the community. So they have to partner with faith-based initiatives or organizations to be able to meet the needs on the ground level, to go through the hallways of community. And those individuals that already have the relationships, they're making it happen. They just need the funds. And
That's exactly correct.
So if touch a little bit on that, and then also I want you to touch on that's one thing, and then number two, I want you to touch on for profit. So hey, I'm out there and I'm hearing all of these 40 million dollars worth of free money out there to help impact the community. Well, what if I'm a for-profit organization? How do I fit in this whole grand scheme as well? So two things there I threw at you.
So let me say this. You've touched on the initial part of my presentation for the 24th. So okay. I don't want to go too deep in that, but okay, I will say this. The most powerful structure, and I'll share this on the 24th, the most powerful structure, and I know you have your nonprofit corporation, you have the hybrid, which is your limited liability company. You have your S corporation, your C corporation. I'm saying to you, the most powerful entity out there is the 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit. And I'll share that with you. And I'm going to show you why President Barack Obama, when he was a community organizer, said change starts at the grassroots level. So when you understand why he said that, and you understand the power of the 501c3, you're going to see the power that your church has and that your nonprofit has. And you're going to ask yourself, why did I not use this power because I'm driving the most powerful vehicle within the country.
Wow.
That's the
Wow.
conversation we're going to have. Now, when you're talking about the for-profit, wouldn't it be great? And I'm going to show you how nonprofits, by accessing these dollars, can launch a for-profit that winds up sustaining the nonprofit indefinitely.
Wow. Okay.
That's the
I
conversation that we're
definitely.
going to have.
Okay.
And
Well, we're going to save some of that for the 24th. I feel it. I feel the energy. I feel the passion. I definitely will be there taking notes because one of the things that's been in my heart and vision, and not just mine, but every pastor, community leader I've spoken to, is it's the same. You can't have a heart for people and not want to see change.
that's right.
And one of the things, Osceola, that we often hear is that we want to be a hub, we want to be a resource center, we want to be what the church is really defined as is to be a life force for the community, right?
That's
So,
right.
but how do we do that outside of just the Sunday? If your building is not in operation, but on those 2 hours during Sunday, that's a wasted resource, I think. So
Yes,
how do we get some things moving? And you're going to talk about that on the 24th.
most definitely.
Let's kind of wrap up because I don't want to give away to you. You're literally going to go through the structure, the applications, and those types of things. But talk about October 24th, and hopefully Andrea is still on. She's going to post a website where people can register. There is a registration fee that's going to help us to try to meet some of the costs. It's a very minimal cost of $99. We have an early bird that will expire on the 10th, which I think is Saturday. And then it's another fee after that. I think we moved it up to 124 so we can prepare because we're going to have resources available for everybody who's there. And we want to make sure that we're accommodating the individual. We'll have light refreshments as well. But talk about what's going to happen. Give us a little framework, not the meat, but the framework. 1 to 3. What is it that we'll receive on those 2 hours?
Certainly. So the first thing I want individuals to understand is the power, again, of the 501c3. Why that's the most powerful structure, so that individuals in attendance will understand the vehicle that they're driving. Once we talk about the 501c3 and why it was created, we're going to talk about the dollars that the 501c3 is eligible to apply for. And that's going to be a comprehensive conversation. We're going to talk tours across the state of South Carolina, education, juvenile justice, workforce, a comprehensive dialogue around those grant dollars. Then we're going to talk about the process of applying for those dollars. After we talk about the process of applying for those dollars, I'm going to show individuals how to create a comprehensive model where they can diversify funding streams and create organizational longevity for their nonprofit structure. Then I'm going to end that with talking about how that nonprofit will give you the autonomy to launch a for-profit that will end up sustaining the not-for-profit indefinitely.
Wow.
And then I'll talk about the need to create subordinate chapters around the state so that we can affect change across counties. And so that's the gist of the day. That's a lot of information that we're going to pack into 2 hours. But if individuals come, I want them to come with a mind to receive, because this is a serious conversation that we're having. And I want individuals to leave understanding how they can go after these dollars and ready to create change.
That's awesome. And I'm sitting here taking notes as well because one of the things I know is going to happen is that this is going to be our launching pad. South
Certainly.
Carolina is overdue, Brother Thomas, to really see an impact, particularly in those destitute areas, rural areas, which is where our focus is. We've set up a school in, as you mentioned, the corridor of shame, which we've recoined as the corridor of opportunity, because there's
Excellent.
buku opportunity there by way of these grants, and partnering with individuals like yourself is really going to help us get there. I don't know if there's any questions. But I will ask that if you do have questions, you can put it in the feed. We are able to receive your information, or you're able to register at fulllifevictorycenter.org. And if you go to that website, there's a link under the calendar section, and you'll see a graphic that says South Carolina 2020 Economic Summit. And I'm just excited, overexcited to host my friend and guest, Brother Osceola Thomas from North Carolina. And he's going to provide for us the framework and structure that we need to really get our organizations making a greater impact. So I'm going to let you give some last words, and we're going to call it a night.
Well, I just want to challenge all of the churches, especially pastors. Those that will be in attendance, please make sure you bring your leadership team. One of the things that I share is if you're applying for dollars, your leadership team needs to understand the process as well. So that's one of the things that I want to encourage, that leaders are in attendance with their leadership team, because I'm going to talk about the process of creating a shared vision for change. But I'm very excited, Pastor Bailey, and I saw here in the chat feed one of my former pastors when I was an adolescent, Bishop Johnny Dawson in Hartsville, who pastors in Charlotte, South Carolina. So I'm hoping that he'll be in attendance as well. But I'm excited about coming to South Carolina, helping to create this change, because again, and I make no apologies for saying this, I'm intentionally targeting disenfranchised communities and people of color. Now, let me preface that. When I was in the state of North Carolina about 2 years ago, I had an opportunity to speak to the Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. And in my presentation, I shared with them, excuse me, that I'm not a racist, I'm a realist. I said, if I was an animal lover and the dolphins were becoming extinct, while I love all animals, I would focus my energy on saving the dolphins. And I shared with them that I'm a humanitarian. So there is a segment of our humanity, a subgroup of our humanity is called the African American males. And now I'll say the African American community in general, that's facing extinction and annihilation. So I make no apologies for targeting that particular subgroup. So when I come, I'm having conversations around that subgroup. I love all humanity, but right now my mind is on that African American community, because they are facing risk factors that need to be addressed, or we're going to face extinction. And so I want everyone to please come, because my goal is to show you how we can change the face of poverty, eradicate poverty, change the face of our community, and create generational wealth. So that's going to be a part of that conversation. So I'm just excited. I'm excited. Can't wait.
You're stirring me up, and you're speaking my language, and you've heard it here, folks, that we need to register, get your teams to the South Carolina 2020 Economic Summit that will be held in Hartsville. There is a question here from Ms. Cotton. What do we need to bring with us to prepare?
I want them to bring their laptops or a pad and a pen and an open mind.
I love it. I love it. I see many of our folks here are tagging others to let them know about the event. So that is awesome. And I do see just other comments that they're just really excited about the event. Another question is from our Jessica Cohen. I think you've spoken with her once before, and she is another community advocate that has an organization that is promoting these types of initiatives. She mentions or asks, will the recording be available afterwards? And I'm going to guess I'll have to answer that. And I'll say yes. Those who can attend live, we will have that package in a package. And we'll talk about that, Brother Thomas. How do we properly get that out? Because there will be some exclusive information. And without people literally being there, you know, sometimes the information needs to be understood in context, if that makes sense. So we'll talk about that.
Most definitely.
Anything else? I don't see any other questions. I see people are still sharing the feed here. And I think that's going to be it for tonight. I want to keep talking, but I know I got to let you go. Look, I know people are anxious to probably get on the vice president debate. So after a while, we may lose some of our attendees. I don't know. But listen, thank you, Brother Thomas. We'll be in touch. And
My
all of
pleasure.
you who are watching, I appreciate you. And you all have a blessed night.
You do the same.